Hello. I don't know how we're going to go today with sound because I have been using a little, what are they called, Lavelle or a lapel microphone, and had it the other day. What did I have it for? Something I was doing, and I've put it away and I don't know where I've put it. I could have gone and looked for it, but I would have spent that long looking for it. The sun would have gone by the time I found it. So, the main reason I'm out here is to just get some sun, really. I've got the sun on my back and it's very lovely. We've had so much rain lately that I don't get out in the sunshine a lot. Well, I haven't for quite a while, between the rain and everything else that's been going on. I haven't had a lot of time to just sit. So I thought, instead of just sitting here and not really doing anything, because I know if I come out here I'll just sit in the sun and probably just nod off because it's so lovely. So I thought, instead of doing that, I will pull out some of the things I've been working on. Not that I get to work on a lot at the moment. Everything's just so focused around destashing that I'm not getting a great deal of time to spend on other projects. But I was going to just show you some updates on my Forever Scrappy quilt, which is a Sue Garrett pattern, and you can find that pattern on her website at flower, oh crikey, I'll remember shortly, I hope. If not, I'll put it in the info. But I've also been doing a bit more work on my vintage needle book. Now, I bought this kit from Beckett Sew Bee probably 12 months ago, and I've just been doing little bits here and there. The poor things, it's a bit of a chunky monkey. My needle books do tend to become a bit chunky. Now, this is constructed from a piece of vintage sari silk that Beck brought home from Japan last year, I believe. It has the silk lining that was originally in the, I don't know if it was a kimono or something like that. It looks like that she's rescued it from. I deconstructed it all, and it's really interesting. It looks like it's caught the stitches on the silk lining, but I haven't actually stitched that. It's just from being pressed, I guess. So I deconstructed, it was a piece that was cut out. I squared it off, which trimmed off a tiny little slither on one corner. That was about it. And deconstructed the lining from this silk. And then I reconstructed it. So this edge here was a raw, like a selvage edge. You can see there, it was actually hemmed and tucked away in the garment, the piece that I received. So when I pulled it apart, I've used another piece of that silk lining to just make a bit of a little feature along there. See the Oh crikey, my fingernails are bloody filthy again. I do have clean hands, guys. This piece was already in the lining, the sari, in the piece that I got, so I left it there. I thought I'd just use that as a little feature. I still don't know if this stage, if I'll add something, I don't know. So I've done that. I've done my run-in stitch or my cantha stitch all the way through the cover. We open her up and I've got, this was a piece of reclaimed linen table centre. It was a big, might have even been like a pillow sham because it was quite large. And it does bother me a bit because that to me looks like it's upside down. However, I did it that way because I had this piece, this scroll work sitting out here. But then when I closed it, it stuck out about that far and it really bothered me. So I've ended up turning it over and stitching it down on this side. This piece in here is a piece of vintage linen pulled thread work, supper cloth. It is a bit of damask. So there is a little bit of pattern in there, but this pulled piece of linen, this liner in here with the yellow thread work, pulled thread work, it was so degraded, it was falling apart. So I've rescued some of that to put in there. This is a piece of that beautiful Sue Spargo wool. I'm just finding little threads. I based everything down with quite small basting stitches to try and minimize any movement when I'm stitching. The poor thing, it's already looking grubby, and I'm not even finished it. So that's what I've done there. Then I've put in this beautiful hand crocheted little doily as a page. Now whoever made this never finished off the ends. There's all these little ends hanging on each medallion and then each join in here. Now I don't know whether to leave them because that's how she's been for years, or do I, like, look how short this one is. It's going to be, I can still do it, I guess. I'm just thinking about how I'm going to weave it in to tie all those tails off. Anyway, so when we open it, that's how she looks on that page. Turn this one over and look, there's more threads and dog hairs. I was stitching this morning and in bed, and Willow came rushing in because her toe was bleeding. I trimmed her nails again last night and they were okay. I'm so very aware of not cutting the quick, but I must have got right on the edge of one, and after she ran around like a bit of a pork chop this morning, it started bleeding. And gee, she was distressed, the poor little mite. So anyway, as a result, I've got some fur on my wool again. I've got needles tucked in here and there and everywhere. So okay, there's our next page. Again, I'm not decided as to whether I'm going to add anything else to this page. I struggle with an entire blank page like that, but I'm also mindful that I need space to put needles and pins. I mean, it is a needle book. There must be a bit of silk that I've just pulled off the other side there. I just noticed this coloured thread down here came in the kit that Beck sent. This was included. I ran out of that. I'm on my actually on my third skein, and I'm only using 2 strands at a time. Mind you, I have misplaced one or part of one. Interestingly, it's almost the exact same colour as this vintage. Look at that flower that's embroidered there. So I found that very interesting. But then I've just noticed this one. I've used a variegated. This is actually a crochet thread, this one, like a pearl 8 or something, like an eleganza or something like that. It's a vintage one. It's an older one. Then we open a page. This is basted down so it won't sit like that. Once I've finished doing this spine properly, I'm going to take those basting stitches out that are holding that together at the moment, and it will sit better. It's another piece of silk that was included in the kit from Beck, another Japanese silk. I can see I should get I can see better out here in the daylight than I can inside. I can hear Willow up to something. I've just given her a big bone cut down the middle from the butcher's that hopefully will keep her occupied while I'm out here. Now, what was I heading for? Scissors. I've got all these little tails and threads and things that are popping up that I'd like to trim off while I'm out here as we go. So this one, there's a little silk one here that must have come from that fabric. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, that's not sitting right yet because I've put a great big basting tacking stitch in there to hold some of these layers together. And again, interestingly, this doily has that very similar colour. It's a little bit lighter, maybe a shade lighter than that original one there. It's very close. So another vintage doily. That's an entire doily, and I have lined it with another piece of silk that came in that kit from Beck. I've just noticed you can see the shadow through there. So I just lined that, needle turned that all around that edge, all around there to attach it to the doily. And then this was included in the kit from Beck as well. I'm just tossing up, I've already stitched it together, but I'm tossing up whether I want to put some little green threads here and there on the leaves, and not sure yet, especially since I've stitched all that up. I've done that. This is where those big basting stitches are at the moment that's holding this all together. So this is a piece of fabric from Sobe. It did not come in the kit from Beck, but I did buy this here. I believe this is possibly a Mum and Son or Momson. I'll have to double check now. But I thought the colours worked well, and I was looking for something to line this with, and the neutral things and the beiges and the laces and things just weren't working for me. And so I found that. And then I've got this piece of, this is just a vintage bias binding that I've stitched on there, and I've made sure that I've needle turned it all nice and neatly in the pocket there. So I just finished stitching around here this morning in blanket stitch. That's why this is tacked on here for now. Again, I might do some little single threads in green and that coral or kumquat colour. I'm not sure yet. Like I said, especially since I've stitched it all together, but that doesn't mean I can't. I can come in and do when I put that needle. So if I decide I want to add some stitches, I will most likely use a single strand of DMC, and I'll start with, put a tail of thread in. Maybe I should show you what I'm thinking. I don't think I've got any cottons out here though. Any coloured ones anyway. Is there anything in here? I've got this one. That's the one. I had to get another one of those the other day because I'd run out. Now that's not a DMC, I'm actually using that on another project and I'm getting very low. Of course I don't have any green out here, do I? There's a pink. Oh, what a bummer. Let me have a quick look in here, see if there's anything. I think I've taken them out of here this morning too. Out of my little box of tricks up here. Poppycock. Got some in sitting on the table, but I didn't want to get up and leave. Let me just double check. Of course, I just knocked my bag over, so everything's fallen out. Okay. Oh, there might be one in there. No. Okay, let's have a quick look there. Anything in there? Any thready threads? I've got a neon one. I don't want neon in there. No. Okay. What about... Put my glasses back on. Oh, crikey Moses. There's a green there, but there's no greens that I want to use. Oh, what about that one? I don't think this is the right colour, I think. No, I think this is a better colour, but I didn't want to use that thread. Oh, bummer. I didn't bring any out because this was not in the plan. That's a really good colour to use though. I don't want to use that. Can you bear with me for a minute and I'll pop inside and see if I can grab one? Because I don't want to use that colour at this point because there's already some of that colour printed on there. Now you'll have to bear with me again while I try and stand up from this stool with my worn out knees. Okay guys, give me a minute. Hopefully I won't be long. I'll grab some off the table here. Try not to knock over the stand because I've got to navigate the power cord. Oh, crikey. Oh. Okay guys, I'm on the way back. Thank you for bearing with me. Now after all that, the things I grabbed are a bit silly because I do have somewhere, or not somewhere, I know exactly where they are. I just didn't think of them until just now. I do have boxes, about 4 or 5 maybe more, boxes of stranded cottons that are already wound onto skein cards and in colour order and whatnot. But anyway, I digress. I've picked some things up. This is a little pile of vintage. There's none there that I want to use. That's not a bad colour again, but I don't want to use. That looks like a Pearl 5. That's way too chunky. I do have, this is my little collection of variegated strandeds. I covet these. I don't know why, but I do. That's not a bad colour, is it? No, it's too bluey green. Oh, maybe not. That's too limey green. That's too blue. Don't think they're going to be the right colours, to be honest. Oh, fiddlesticks! I dropped my quarter-inch rule. Okay, we don't want those colours. This is a pack I got recently that I haven't added to my coveted. This person with that bloody car lately. Now, that's an Anchor one that doesn't have much left, obviously. Look, they've come in different packs and they're the same colour, but I think they're too cool for this. They're not the right shade. Now, what are these? These are different. Now, those two are the same colour. That colour's might be okay. Just don't know if it's a little bit too... I mean, it works in with that, doesn't it? Does it work with that? Oh, yeah, it works. I mean, it's not horrible, is it? Maybe that's the one. That's too... So I was thinking more this colour, but that's too limey green, I think. If I had brought out my other boxes, I could have, most likely would have found one the right colour. But since I forgot all about them and just brought out these tins, I think that's too limey green again. Right. Not much in that tin that's useful. What about this one? No, there. Don't like those colours. That one's not too bad. We're getting closer, but I think it's too dark. That's too limey again, I think. They're too sagey. They're too blue-green. I'm thinking that this variegated one's going to be the goer, to be honest. For now, so I'm not leaving you hanging here again while I go to get my other boxes. So, how would I do this when I've already got this stitched up? Let's have a look. Now, do you know with these, you probably already know this, but with these DMC stranded threads, there's always a tail at the bottom here. If you hold it upright, it reads in this direction, so it's aligned that way. At the bottom there's always a tail, and that's where you pull your thread from without the risk of it getting tangled. So I'm going to snip that off there. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail there so I can easily find it again when I want to come back. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's my little needle. I think that's a new John James one I got. I've got hundreds of stitching hand sewing needles, and they're either rusty or blunt, or so I actually bought a packet of new ones the other day, which I haven't done for many, many years. Thread in my, of course, that thread split then, didn't it? Now that, thread it the way it comes off the strand, so the dark colour was the last bit, that's where I snipped it. So if I thread it this way, this is how it first came off. It's actually twisted to go in. How can I explain it? So as you pull the yarn off, next time I go to thread it, I'll thread it from this this end here first into the needle, because the way it's mercerized or twisted, it's done the best way, the ultimate, what's the word I'm after? The best way to this end is the best, how can I explain it? The first end that comes off the skein is the end that goes in the needle first. I mean, it's not critical, of course, but it makes it a lot easier. It's designed for it to go that way. And if you can't thread your needle easily, try turning the eye of the needle around, because needles are stamped and they do have the eye. There is a front and a back to the eye. Okay, so let's pick a bit here. We might do some little green stitches. Let's go over here, hey. So what I'll do is bring the needle in. Now I'm jiggling around like this because I want to make sure I've got the needle between this layer and that layer of fabric. I don't want it coming through on that side. I want to make sure it's just sandwiched in there. And I'm going to bring it up just inside that line. Now, I don't want to bring it up right on that, where that leaf begins there. I want to come in a mil or two, because what I'm going to do, now let me think for a minute. Should I do that or that? I might do a fly stitch actually, so I will, it's a funny shape though. I'll bring it in up here instead. Now bear with me, I'm not entirely sure this will work the way I'm thinking. Now I've just gone against what I just told you. I'm bringing that up at the point of that leaf now. I haven't come in a couple of mil like I said down here. And what I'm going to do is gently pull the thread through. You can see the tail down here slowly disappear. And then I want to stop. I'm also mindful that because this is a dark green, we're going to get a shadow through this white fabric. Now I'm going to come up here where we've come out and just move a thread away and go in just below where we've come out, and then do a little, I want to make sure this doesn't get caught because we don't want to pull that tail out. Gently pull this through and we should create a little, and I pulled the tail out. Let's try again. I know what I did. I actually threaded the thread through the thread. So I threaded the needle through the thread where I didn't want it to go and therefore pulled it out of place. So let's try that again. Maybe I need to slow down a little bit. I've got my towel down here. You can even hold this if you'd need to. I mean, if worst comes to worst, you can stick a pin in here and then wrap your tail around it, anchor it, or even do an anchor knot and then cut it off later. But I usually don't bother with that because most of the time I don't have any trouble getting this to work. So see there, I've actually, no, it doesn't look like I've got it this time. I don't want to stitch into that thread, which is what, there we go. So I've got a little anchor stitch, but I think I've just accidentally pulled it again. So let's put another holding stitch to make sure we've well and truly got that anchored. There we go. So it's not going anywhere now. Now what I'm going to try and do is, I'm going to come up here again. I'm making sure I'm not going through any of these layers of fabric at the back. Okay, I'm just going through this top layer. And I'm going to try and do a fly stitch. There's a bit of bulk up this end because I've done those 2 anchor stitches. And to do the fly stitch, I'm just going to follow that outline of that leaf if I can. Again, just making sure I don't go through that back layer of fabric. I can feel that with my finger. And I've missed a stitch. What a knucklehead. I haven't done that center anchor, so I'm just going to undo that bit before I go all the way through. And yet I was trying to cut corners. Well, I was trying to do it all in 2 movements instead of, I know what I've done. Okay, let's thread up again. Okay, oops, a daisy. Got it in and pulled it out straight away. Can you hear Willow in the background with her bone? Okay, now I need to put that anchor stitch in there for the spine, don't I? Now, okay, let's try again. The tail's too long. Oh, crikey. Okay. Again, it's a little bit chunky up there where we put that holding stitch. It's not ideal. Now we're on a bit of a roll. Come out next to that. I need a magnifying glass, I think. Hopefully I'm keeping you in frame because I'm looking at my stitching, not at the monitor. Now, of course, it would be much, much easier to do this before you stitch it all together. But I often change my mind. I get things together and then I think, oh, maybe I should add a little bit of colour or a little bit of detail. And that's how I find myself in these situations. But that's okay because we can overcome that. Because these leaves are so tiny, I feel that, I'm still feeling the back to make sure I'm not going through. I feel that a single strand will give me the best outcome here. And I mean, I very rarely work with more than 2 strands anyway when I'm stitching. All of the around the outside I've only used 2. Now that side, see this leaf was lopsided, so this side's already sort of filled in. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. There we go, that might be all we need there. What do you think? Now, I don't know if I want to do all these leaves or just do bits here and there, but what I might do is, let's go and do that one next, hey? So I'll put that little anchor stitch down below that last fly and then come, oh, sorry, my arm's aching a bit. I want to anchor stitch in here, if I can see properly. Now again, I'm feeling my way between, now I can feel that I've come out the back this time. I turned it through to show you and the needle's fallen out, but I did go through and I don't want to do that. So let's try again. Put that little anchor stitch in and I'm jiggle, jiggle, jiggle to make sure I'm between the two layers of fabric, and I'm going to come up now. You might have noticed see that needle coming out a few times. I'm just trying to make sure I get that to come out almost exactly where I want it. So I'm trying to get it right at the end of that join there in the middle. Now, if you can't get it the first time, just manipulate it a little bit until you get it. You don't have to just go, oh, well, that's it, I missed the mark. Right. So I might need to untangle this a little bit, and every now and then I will come and just snip the tail off a little bit. See how that's fraying? It's fatiguing very quickly. I didn't put any conditioner on it either. Okay, so let's go and do this next leaf. I probably should have come up over there to reduce all this bulkiness at the point. Again, making sure I'm not going through that lining fabric. Okay, and there's our first fly's wings, and then we'll come and do our anchor stitch in here and then bring up the start of our next wing. And there's a bit of fluff thread. See, this thread's fatiguing very quickly. It's splitting and fraying. Just going to check and see if there's if anyone's commented and I've missed it. It doesn't look like it. I just didn't want to miss if you were saying anything to me or asking me any questions as we go, which of course you're more than welcome to. I'll try and keep an eye on the messages. I will stop and check them every now and then anyway, the comments. Okay, let's go. I don't know if this thread is fatiguing. It seems to be fatiguing very quickly. I don't know if it's because it's an older thread. Shouldn't really matter that much. I don't know if maybe this fabric's too harsh for it. It's a more open weave. It shouldn't be fatiguing it that much. And when I say fatigue, I mean it's the fibres are getting damaged each time I pull it through the fabric. They're getting worn out and tired and fatigued. They're splitting and fraying, and so I'll try and continue to keep going. One of the reasons is because I've cut my thread too long. I've spoken about this before, but I get very lazy. I don't want to keep cutting pieces. So when you cut your piece of thread to stitch with, when you're doing embroidery like this, you should not cut it any longer than from the tip of your finger to the crook of your elbow. It's about 12 inches roughly on most people. It shouldn't be any longer than that because so you can see that whole length in that frame. That reduces fatigue and it reduces the chance of it getting knotted, and so I've cut it nearly double that length. And again, it just causes it to fatigue quicker, and you often end up wasting bits because you have to cut it off because it's fraying and splitting and whatnot. So I'm having a little bit of trouble not going through the back at the moment. There we go, I've got it. Little fly stitch. Let's put our little tail in here and go in for the next set of wings. Now I'm trying really hard. I've got a terrible habit of stitching too close. You'll probably see that by my blanket stitch on the edge here. Now I have to try and keep reminding myself, especially when doing these fly stitches, for example, that I do not need to stitch right up next to each other. I need to leave a little bit of space so I'm not getting big, chunky, blocky. Yeah, see, there's a little bit of space in there. I don't know how well that's focusing for you. You can see a little bit of space. We don't want too much. I don't mind seeing a little bit of the white because to me that gives it a bit more of a veiny look. But I don't want too much either because it's such a tiny little area. If I leave too big a space, it's just going to look like I've been careless as well. So again, coming up. Next one over here, I can see I might have left that last one a little bit too widely spaced, but that's okay. Sometimes when we push these next stitches in, that will force them to move over a little bit and fill in a bit more. Oops, see what I've done there? I've caught it on that leaf next to me. So what I want to do is, there's my fly's wings. I don't want to pull them out, but I'll pull this out. See this loop? I want this loop to stay here if I can, but I need to pull this bit out of here because I don't want to tack it to that leaf next to us. Now I'm going to thread this up again. I might be a little bit too close. I'll zoom out again in a minute. I'll just finish showing you this. So you can see this. Look how much that tail's split and fatigued and frayed. So I will trim that off again and neaten it up a little bit. It's still, you can still see it's fatiguing. That's the twist is coming loose, undone. The mercerization. Threading the needle. I wonder if I can do it looking through the monitor. I don't think so. It's a bit difficult. I need to look. There we go. Okay, now hopefully, I should have straightened that thread out a bit too. Hopefully we've still got that loop up there. So what I want to do is come underneath that loop to make sure we've still got those wings, and there we go. We just have, I don't even think I really need to put another set of wings in there, another set of stitches. I think that might be enough. So let's anchor this down. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying really hard to not go, although when I lift that up, can you see there's still a bit of space under there? So I will put another set in, another stitch, do another fly stitch. Hopefully I'm not making you nauseous having it so zoomed in. I just thought it might have been easier for you to see what I'm actually doing. There's that anchor stitch, now the next. Supposed to be going to training tonight, but I've had a bit of a heavy chest today and I don't think I really want to go out in the cold and risk getting sick. Okay, I think that's enough for that one. What do you think? It's looking pretty good. So let's do this anchor stitch underneath here and then move over to this third leaf. Now, I've got that needle coming out, but I didn't have my fingers behind here. I pulled it out anyway to make sure I hadn't gone through the lining, and I had. I could feel it. So it's really awkward at this angle, from this angle. Let's zoom out a bit, hey, so you're not getting nauseous watching. Let me know if you want me to zoom back in again. Okay, so we want that anchor stitch to go in there. Yes, I'm doing it upside down, but I'm trying to make sure I'm not going through that lining or that second piece of fabric in the back there. Now, I haven't had a look at that back yet to make sure I haven't gone through, but let's have a look together. Let's turn it over. There's the leaf. And you can see, I can feel one right there. There's no stitches that have come through. So I'm just stitching in between those two layers of fabric. This isn't what I was going to do today. I was going to do some more of my scrappy quilt. Now, this is where it gets difficult. Because I haven't done it before I've stitched it, I can't get this at a good angle to stitch at. So let's try and pop over here. Trying to do this stitch upside down now. Only because, oh Baba, she keeps getting things stuck in her throat lately. Only because I can't manipulate the fabric to do it upright without having my hand behind it to feel what's happening. Hop in there, you stinker. Okay. It's a bit more difficult doing it upside down. The brain's got to think a bit more than usual. Not a heap more, but I do actually, because I keep nearly missing this anchor stitch. Okay. Now when I put together my needle books, nearly anything I do actually, because it's not just these. As I go along, I mentioned this earlier, like I'm at this stage, I'm thinking of more things I could do. So I've learned quite a few little techniques, or I've worked out a few that I can adjust or add like I am here without undoing everything. I used to get to this point and either go, oh darn it, I've missed an opportunity, I could have added some colour and some texture. Oh well, too late now because I've already stitched it all together. Or I'd cut it all open and stitch in my bits and then spend hours and days and potentially weeks putting it all back together again. So instead of doing that, this is what I do. And it's not always this sort of stitching that I think of. It could be appliquing something. So I'll show you another example I think I've got out here with me. There should be another needle book here. Maybe not. Where is that one gone? Is it in there? There it is, I think. Okay. Here's another one I'm working on. Now, I thought of doing these. I've got to get rid of that marker line there, that pen line. I thought of adding these stitches after I had constructed it. So I've done them the same way, just in between the layers. Same as these ones. I thought of adding this lace afterwards, so I unpicked that and stuck that in there. What else? Still working on all that. This is a good example. I decided to applique these flowers onto this page. Now I don't know why I did, because I don't know. I don't love this page. And then where I appliqued it down, it was really untidy. I didn't like it. So I decided to do some of this weave stitch over those appliqued edges to try and hide, not only hide the messy applique, but to give it some more texture. I'm not happy with it, but I did all that after this was all constructed. So I've tried to not go through the back of this piece of wool, but you can see there's little bits peeking through here and there, which is one of the reasons I've added this pocket, because it covers some of those bits where I just wasn't able to manage keeping them on the other side. This pocket was added after all that. So I've managed to stitch all this down. It hasn't come through this side. What else have I done after the fact? This Suffolk puff, I mean, that's not really got lining, but I've attached that so there's invisible stitches on this side. You can't see any of those stitches, I don't think, and it's very hard to see them if you can. And I've basically done that by just stitching to one, like a warp or a weft thread, so you can't see it. I've just sort of appliqued that onto there. This was another example. These were separate pages, and then I decided to attach this quilt square and this doily together, and then this part of this doily stuck out too much and I didn't like the look of it, so I've attached that down this side just to neaten it up a bit. And then after I had joined all that together, I decided to attach this bit of 80s wedding bridal lace, complete with stains, but I love the stains. I love the colour and the character it gives. See all the little like rust stains on it. Haven't finished this bit. Oh, have I? I have blind stitched this hem, and again, if I get rid of that pen line, you'll find it very difficult to see my stitches because I've tried to do invisible stitching. This bit, I'm still not convinced I want to add this, and if I do, how I'm going to do it. This filet lace, I don't know whether to put it I originally had it running across here, like that, which potentially could work as a pocket, but I'm just not sure about it. Again, I need to remember to leave space for needles and pins and things to go into. But yeah, that's why this is still just sort of pinned there, because I haven't decided which way I want to go with that, if any. I've got nothing on this side except bloody dog hair. That's not from my dog, that's a ring-in. I'll sit here for ages trying to pull those out. Now this bit, I buggered this up. I've unpicked it. I need to unpick some more because it's not sitting square. Don't know if you can see that. So I put this together. I did my blind hem up here, and then I decided to attach. I did have this stitched on, blanket stitched this on, this bit of wool. And then I thought it looked a bit dicky sitting down there like that, so I've attached this piece of vintage French linen over the top of it, and it just sort of opens up to reveal this little needle book section. But when I stitched it all together, this piece of linen ended up sitting wonky like that, so I've started to unpick that. I'll redo that. It was bugging me too much. I couldn't embrace the wonk that much, so I need to fix that. And then again, this bit, this lace trim was an afterthought, and I've just sort of attached that to that hem, that blind hem that I'd done up here. As you can see the back where I've stitched these on, it's not so much there now because I've taken most of the stitches out. You can barely see which stitches were there, and hopefully when I get it all put together again, you won't see them again. Now this was an afterthought, a bit of rusty lace. So I've just sort of stitched that into the center there. Again, this lace up here was an afterthought. Now, normally, I think I've spoken about this before, normally I try to cover the reverse side because it bugs the crap out of me, but I quite like this one. I don't know why, so I don't think I'm going to cover it. There's the front side of it. Again, you can see this little flap here. That's done because, see there's it was too wide. So if I put it in, if I use that fold as the spine, it stuck out too much when I closed it, and I didn't like it. So instead of cutting it off, I've kept the flap here. Now I don't always do them this way. I do it different all the time. And I've used that as a launching pad to attach a Suffolk puff page, and then this way we can see both the front of the puffs and all that detail on the back of those beautiful vintage fabrics. Now this is a piece that I was getting to. All these blinking hairs, that does my head in. This, I need to get rid of all these pen lines too. This piece of lace was an afterthought. I had already put all this together. I've come through, I don't know if you can see, but I started stitching this from the center here. I've done all these tiny little holding stitches, I suppose, and I've worked out in a spiral to secure all this so it doesn't shift and buckle and fold. And then I've done this outside, see all these outside anchoring stitches. That was the last thing I did. So always work from the center out so you have less chance of it buckling and folding and carrying on. And hopefully, if I've done it the way I wanted to, you shouldn't see any stitches. I can see them. I was going to say you shouldn't see any stitches on this side, but I can see them. I wasn't as clever as I had thought I was. So whether I do something to cover those, I don't know yet. I had always planned to stitch this piece of vintage, this French vintage linen in here, but again, whether I just stitch it on as a feature or whether I do another little door flap or whether I turn that into a little pocket, I haven't decided yet. Pocket might work actually. This page, I haven't stitched this down yet, so that's just basted, just tacked down. I have to go and do my invisible stitch along there. This one, this was a bit odd, the way I did this. Again, this is another of my thinking of things as I go. So this is a piece of linen on the back here that I attached to this, attached to the other side of this. You can just see it through here. So I've attached that doily and that quilting square to that piece of linen is sandwiched in between them there. So I could extend this page so you can see the doily through here, peeking through here. And then because I had this large piece of blank linen, I've hemmed it over on both sides here. That bugged me, just having this big piece of empty linen, so I appliqued another piece of that beautiful hand-dyed Australian wool vintage piece there that I bought many, many, many years ago. Appliqued it on, and it still looked too bare to me, so I've come along and appliqued this appliqued flower. I then went and did, well actually I've done that before because you can see I've stitched over it. I've put a piece of vintage bias along here, and then I decided to stitch a piece of lace along that bias seam, and I've done it in a way that it can be tucked away in that page as a bit of a feature, like so, or you can open it up and have it hanging out as a little peekaboo. So when we close it, we can have this little peekaboo hanging out if we wanted to. But if we don't want it hanging out and getting grubby and caught, we just fold it away and she sits nicely in there like that. Now again, this was all an afterthought. This was all sort of working it out as I went along. I'm still not finished this one, so there may be more things happening as I go. I didn't want to, the tip of this lace extended up here about that much, and that looked dicky, and I didn't want to cut it off, so I've turned it over and stitched it along as another little feature bit. But then here's the back of that quilt block, and I tried to do a fancy ladder stitch there joining it, and hopefully when I get rid of those pen marks, you will see that stitch. It'll be more of a feature stitch. You can't really see it very well with those lines there. I just hope, I used an inexpensive marker here and I hadn't used them before, and I just hope that line comes out, because something else I did, it didn't come out, and I'm very disappointed in myself. Another one of those Suffolk puffs that I've added, those vintage 30s feed sack puffs to the back of this sandwich tray cloth. Again, this is what I mentioned earlier, the back of the embroidery often does my head in, so I often cover it. But I decided to leave these bits peeking out because I like how that looks, where I've attached that. And I've turned that page over and there's the right side of that embroidery, and again, it's very, very hard to see where I've stitched that Suffolk puff on because I've tried to do invisible stitches. Oh, all this hair, this does my head in, no matter how hard I try to keep, this was in a Ziploc bag, and I've still managed to get dog hair all over it. Cripes. It must be on my clothes. It must transfer from my clothes because I'm so careful. Anyway, I'll pick all that out one day. I think this is the last page. Oh no, it's not. I'm jumping ahead. So this was the other part of that, where that other side, this page, all that wool. Here's the other side of it. This was a piece of vintage cotton I reclaimed from an old 1950s apron, and it was constructed of all these squares, like on point, and they were so roughly sewn together. And I could see some pieces in there that I thought I'd like to use, so I pulled it apart and I've reclaimed them. Again, this is a piece of that vintage bias tape that I've put on there, and I've also put it on the inside here to make that a nice, neat seam, so there's nothing to catch, and just turn that into a little pocket. It's a bit wonky. We're certainly embracing the wonk with that one. And again, as mentioned, that was another afterthought. Now this piece is another piece of vintage French linen. This piece was, I'm planning on putting this one here. But again, I haven't decided if I want to just stitch that on as a feature, or have it as another flap, or have it as a little pocket of some sort. I haven't decided yet, which is why it's still sitting there. I've tried a few different pieces, but this piece seems to be the right fit for that spot. So I'd say it will be staying. I need to press this again. And this is the other side of that beautiful embroidered bit here. Now again, I think, I can't remember if I mentioned, I don't mind the back of this. I wasn't didn't feel like I had to cover it. Crikey, my words aren't working. So this beautiful thing here, I've done that where I've cut that off, put some more vintage bias tape on there to hold it together. And then here we go on this other side. I've shown this one so many times, guys, you're probably sick of seeing it. And again, the bias tape down this edge, this raw edge, got a little bit peeking through there. Now, this was a piece of vintage Sanderson I bought in a kit from Beck. What else came in the kit? I think this sandwich tray cloth may have. I think this may have. I'll have to double check. These puffs did. Don't know if this did. It may have. Again, I'll have to double check. This doily came in the kit, this pansy doily, and this came in the kit. And I think that was it. There was the Sanderson cover. There might have been a thread. Again, I'll have to double check, but I've added a lot to this one. I added, don't know if that was the wool that came in it. I don't think it was. I think I've added that one. And this was another piece of vintage Sanderson I had in my own collection, and it wasn't a very large piece, so it just seemed to be right to fit. Oh, cut off a packet of bit of cardboard that I put in here because I was stitching these points down, because you can see they keep curling up. So I decided the other day to stitch those down to keep the points nice and open. And because I didn't want to go through the other side, I put the card in there to make sure I wouldn't stitch it to the other bit. So yeah, that's the other bit of that Sanderson I had. It goes all the way through there. So a bit of a tricky one here. I've got a full length pocket running through here with this Sanderson, but I've also done it so there's another pocket here. You can see this is where this fabric was originally folded. It's obviously been reclaimed from somewhere, because no matter how much I've pressed that, I just can't press that fold line out, but that's okay. I didn't want to hide this. I love these, the colours here, along here, that have gone into here, the screen printing. So I decided to make a feature of that. I had this beautiful piece of linen this raw linen that I've wrapped around there as a feature. And again, this was an afterthought, this stitching, but you can see I still need to finish my blanket stitching all the way around in that green. Now that is that green there. That's why I didn't want to stitch with it, because I'm afraid I'm going to run out before I finish this. So that's that one. That is that was just to give you an example of how I think of things to add as I'm going along, and how I ended up in this situation here. Let me just check. There's been no comments or questions, so that's okay. I promised myself this would not go for more than 30-40 minutes at the most. We're already up to 72 minutes, so much for a quick little... I'm not going to have much choice soon to wind up, because the sun's just about... It's behind the trees there. It won't be long until it's ducking behind the hills. And it's already starting to feel very cold. Now, another thing I wanted to mention with this, you know that I'm using a variegated thread here. What I want to try and do is, this poor thread's getting worn out, do some more leaves, and I should end it off instead of carrying my thread, because we will see the thread carried, the shadow through, and I've been taught not to do that, but I just can't be bothered fiddling around, especially since I'm stitching between layers. But I want to carry that over to make sure I'm getting the different colours of green from that variegation. There's not a huge amount showing up in this little bit we've stitched so far. That was a big sigh. I'm just thinking. Of things I need to get done tomorrow. Okay, I might leave that one there. What do you think? It should be enough colour there, I think. Let's do our anchor stitch now. I think I will carry it over to... I think we might do this one. This group of 3 over here. So I'll try to carry this. Again, I hate having my carry stitches behind the work. I'm trying to make sure it's not coming through the back here, which it's not. It's in between those 2 layers of fabric. Now, what I've got to be mindful of too is not pulling that too tight, because I don't want that to scrunch up. I want it to be firm. I probably should have done an anchor stitch there so it has less chance of pulling. Again, this is a bit of a funny angle to do these stitches from. Must be nearly time for magnifying glass. The light's going, so it's getting harder to see where I'm stitching. Hopefully we'll start to see some of that variegation coming out. Because I'm doing such small areas, I don't think I'm going to get any nice variation in one leaf per se. I can feel that now. That's annoying. I can feel that thread running through there. Hopefully it won't be very visible. through that fabric. Well, there were some dogs earlier. I don't know if they were across the road or down the road. I hadn't really heard them before, but my goodness, bark, 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 bark for hours. It's not usual, you don't normally hear them. Might be the dogs down the road that bark when you walk past, but they normally have their say and they're done, but whichever dog it was earlier, oh my gosh, it did not stop. I'm getting a bit close with these stitches. I don't know if you can notice that. See, it's starting to layer up a little bit, bulk up where I'm getting a bit close. It's a bit hard too because, as I keep mentioning, this thread is fatiguing much quicker than it probably should. Gee, I'm really struggling to see it now. Why do I come up with these brilliant ideas? Some traffic again this afternoon, isn't there? I just hope you can hear me well enough without that microphone today. Probably doesn't help either that I'm really concentrating, so I'm not necessarily speaking clearly. Okay, now let's do our little holding stitch. And I'm going to, I should have done it with the others, I'm going to see if I can do a little double holding stitch. There we go. Now let's travel. I hate traveling on these. To start our next one. Not in shot very well, am I? Sorry guys, I'm trying hard to remain in there. And we're slowly starting to see a little bit of variation in colour. I tell you what, my feet are hurting. Now brain, think about how I'm going to do this upside down. Oh, crikey. Making sure I'm not going through the back there, through that other layer of fabric. Now when I go to use another piece of this thread, I will, if I've got it here, use some of my trusty, throw it on the ground, that's always good, isn't it? Oh man, where did it go? Talk about hopeless, I'm always dropping things and I found it, I just can't reach it. Okay. My trusty old Thread Heaven thread conditioner. Now there is a lady, I think, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name offhand. I think she lives in, I think she has a shop in Dubbo maybe, owns a quilt shop. Now she's got her own thread conditioner she sells, and I'd love to buy some actually. I will look up her name and add it in the description. I've had this for years. I've got 2 of these. I don't know where the other one is. I bought these from... One I got from a bead shop in Waratah many years ago, and the other one I got across the road from a quilt store in Waratah. On Point, the quilt store was called. I don't even know if it's still there. But, yeah, this is my second jar. Like I said, I do have another one. It does have a bit more out of it than this one, but I will, when I get another thread out, I will run it through because this reduces that fatigue. This isn't how I should be using it, really, but it might help a little bit. Run your thread through it before you thread your needle. Okay, so let's get back to this. See if I can get a couple more done before it gets too dark. There's a little bit of sun peeking through again. Makes it a bit easier to see with the sunlight there. Don't think I took those stitches out far enough that time. I just can't quite manipulate this to where I want it to go. Oh, I'm off screen again, sorry guys. Hop in there. Now, before I pull that through, I'm going to double check because I didn't have my finger behind there and it hasn't gone through, so we're okay. Okay. I must remember I've got to put the garbage out tonight. I forgot last week. Do you know, I've been here on my own for, nearly 4 years, I suppose. And it wasn't my job to put the garbage out. And I still forget, after all these years, that I need to put the garbage out every week. To be collected, I mean. Okay, I wonder if that's the tree trimmers. I got a letter the other day saying they were coming to trim the trees anywhere from this date to this date, and it was like a 3-week period. Not coming on this date, not coming on this week, just this big, I suppose it's dependent on rain and dependent on how much they get. I don't know if it's them or not, I can't. I think if they were trimming trees it would be much noisier, wouldn't it? Interestingly, some machinery, don't know what, well I was already awake, started up about 5 o'clock this morning up the road, which was interesting because it was heavy machinery and I didn't think they were legally allowed to start up before, 8 o'clock? I have to check. Anyway, it was a bit noisy. Don't know what's going on up there. Sounds like some kind of... I don't know. I'm going to say hydraulic. This is... Can you see? Oh, shivers, I'm out of shot. Can you see this loop here in the thread? That's because as I'm stitching, I'm twisting the needle. So what we want to do is untwist that, because that twist in the thread contributes to fatigue and it also contributes to the likelihood of getting more knots in your work. This leaf's taking me quite a while, isn't it? Sounds like some kind of hydraulic lifter or something to me. It's probably not. Oh, see, this one's taking longer, and apart from the fact that it's at a funny angle, I think I'm putting my stitches a bit too close. Remember I said over here I've got to be mindful not to do them too close. I think I'm doing them too close here. I can still hear Willow in there with her bone. Okay, this one's nearly done. I think maybe one more. Don't know why, but that machinery is really bugging me. I can't concentrate. It shouldn't be bothering me, really. Okay, now. It doesn't look as neat when I look through the monitor. It makes it larger than what it is in real life when I look through the monitor. Now let's do our little holding stitch down here. Oops, try and stay on screen, you silly goose. I don't know whether I should do some back stitch along these stems or just leave it black. What do you think? If I start doing more stitching, I think it might look too chunky. It'll ruin it, I think. I often tend to go a bit too far, take it a bit too far. And I don't want to do that. We're slowly starting to see a bit of variation in that variegation. Just checking again to see if there's any questions or comments as these are coming out. Okay, now this one really is upside down. Does this make it any easier? Crikey, I keep moving it. Hopefully this might help. Hopefully I'll stay in shot if I go here. Is it getting harder for you guys to see? Because it's getting slowly getting a bit dark. Make sure I'm not going through the back. Another big side, I have to stop doing that. Got another dental appointment tomorrow. I haven't been for about 2 weeks and it's the biggest break I've had all year. I normally go every week. I've been going every week to the dentist since January, but I've been getting my teeth fixed for the last nearly 3 years now. Every 3 to 4 weeks. And I tell you what, it gets exhausting. They're still not quite done. Oh, forgot a step. I forgot that the fly's body. Forgot the fly's body on the fly stitch. Oh, it's a bloody Coles truck delivering groceries. It was noisy. Okay. Let's do the fly's body that I keep forgetting. Make sure I haven't gone through. That one felt a bit... No, I haven't gone through. Still not in the Lincoln shot. Oh, I nearly forgot that fly's body again. It messes with my brain a bit when I'm doing it upside down. Let's move these out a little bit wider. Still not a huge amount of variation visible in that colour yet, is there? And I think my thread's getting a bit short for me to actually get to that lighter green. I mean, you can see it, but it's not instantly recognisable. I'll show you in a minute what else I'm thinking of for this one. Tell you what, this left hand, this one here, is starting to ache a bit holding this. Don't do what I've always done. I've always ignored the aches and pains over the years instead of adjusting how I sit or how I work to accommodate those aches and pains. I just kept pushing through, and now I'm really paying for it. My poor body is so tired. Now, what more should I do with the green? I don't want to just do a big clump. Should I go down here somewhere? Maybe that one. This one here. That might be good. I mean, I can always fill in more. Now, I'm not going to travel all the way over there, but I am going to try and put a little double anchor stitch here. I've actually done a double. Let's do a triple anchor stitch, and then we want to hide that tail. So I'm coming up between those fabrics again, and so I'm underneath that one and I'm in between that back one, so I'm not sticking out anywhere. Now I'm going to run this tail up in line with this line that's already printed on here. See, there's already a line printed on here. There's one over here, there's one here. So if I run it up there and come out on that line, if we do see that shadow in the back, your brain might just tell you that it's a little bit of a continuation of that line instead of me travelling with the thread. Let's snip that off. And there's a little bit of colour added. I think I'll do this one down here. Don't know if I'll do any over here. And then I've got the outsides as well that I might add some colour to. But for now, that's how I am going to do that. I've got one last page that I want to add to this, and I've pulled it all, of course. Don't know if you can see, apart from the bloody hair again, can you see all my basting stitches on here? They are all just basting stitches, hold-in stitches. They will all come out. And that is because, I mean, sometimes I do big ones, but there's a time and a place. I've done all these little ones because I want to make sure this part of this doily doesn't shift while I'm stitching the more of these basting stitches I can get in, the less chance I've got of it rolling or folding or scrunching up or whatever. I'm currently working my way. I've started down here with some crochet cotton, this quite a heavy one, and it's a slightly different colour to the others I'm using because I want to try and offset it. Like there's so many different creams and that in here. I'm trying to sort of have layers of them, if that makes sense. So I've started here, and I started doing a little, doing it backwards, mind you, stitching backwards, working my way out to the left. Now, I should have started this way, and I did this way for a reason, and I can't remember why now, but I've started doing this tiny little blanket stitch, and I'm catching this, where I've folded this doily, trying to hide those stitches. I've just spotted one where I've missed, I've come through, but I've tried to hide that stitch on the front here. I've then carried around, I've caught some of this lace, but not all of it, because I want to try not to see these stitches at the front. And then I've continued. Now this isn't what I was planning, this sort of just morphed as I was going. I've kept this running stitch, blanket stitch all the way around the outside of the wool, but I'm no longer catching the doily because I don't want to catch any of that. And then I'll start again down here. But I don't want to catch sort of from here, none of this, because I want to leave this open so they can be used as pockets. It will be anchored down the center here with the seam, so I'll have 2 pockets either side, and that would be my center opening. And that's something, I haven't been sleeping, so when I can't sleep I sit up and do a bit of stitching, and that's what I've been doing. I've also been doing some more of my Forever Scrappy quilt. I've slowly been collecting more fabrics here and there. I got some more last week, some vintage ones from So Be It. This one, Hello Kitty Liberty. Isn't that sweet? Hopefully I don't lose too much detail when I put these pieces. Those feckin' birds are doing my head in. This beautiful little vintage, look at this neon one. Hopefully that will work in my quilt too. Okay, here's some more I've been cutting. Look at these, this one is vintage fabric. That's another one from So Be. It's not all birds, these lines will go away, don't worry, the drawn lines. But they're just gorgeous, look at that. So there for the quilt, there's some more of those bits. That's another vintage scrappy bit I got from a friend the other day. It's probably more 80s, 90s, that one, probably 90s. But it's just such a pretty colour, I thought that'd go in. That was in a scrap bin. Someone was throwing this away and I thought I could use that. So I've rescued that bit. This bit from that, I can't tell if that's a bird or not, but anyway, it's sweet. Here we go. Another bird. Another bird. There's another pretty blue. There's a bit from a friend in a scrapbook bag. They're only, some of these are only little bits, which is what Sue said too. One of the things this quilt's good for is to use up your little bits. And I didn't have a huge amount of little bits, huge variations, so I am slowly collecting more as I go. Most of these have been given to me. You know, yes, I did buy the Liberty. That was only a very small piece of Liberty, a little pack. I think Beck might have brought this one back from Japan recently. But I think it's just the sweetest little... She's got me hooked on these Liberty Hello Kitties now. I've only got 2 so far. The last one was another bit I bought from her last year. Might have been her trip to Japan last year, actually. And again, it was only a smaller piece than this, I think, very small piece. And I gave my daughter half of that one too. So this is another bit that was getting discarded. These are bits from my friend's scrap bag the other day. This is like a chintz. So I'm not sure if this will work, but I've cut a couple of bits that I might put in. Another bit from my friend's scrap bag. Again, not sure if I'll use it, but I really like the green and the mauve together. So cut some bits up. Oh, look at these, some Tilda. More Tilda. More Tilda. More Tilda. More Tilda. I haven't even cut all the Tilda up yet, but there's some more bits that are going into it that I've been preparing. There's some bits that I've already had cut for months and months and months. They need to be pressed again. Where have I put the bits I've already been piecing together? Those birds, my goodness. Here we go, here's some. So what I'm mindful of, I've started doing my squares. I spoke to Sue about it, the designer, and she sort of said, just do them as you go along, you know, do your 4.5-inch squares and then put together your, is it 9 to make your 12.5-inch squares, your blocks. So I've done my first block, right? You would have seen this before. This is my first one, which I absolutely adore. There's so many beautiful vintage pieces in here, including there's that Hello Kitty I got last year from Beck. So that's my first block, okay. Then I'm working on, you know, my squares, piecing them together with all these little bits I'd pre-cut. And again, I don't know if I'm going to use all these, but I just get some ready. I've got a box full here to make it easier. I can pick up a handful when I'm waiting in appointments and things, and I can just stitch some together while I'm waiting. That's mainly what I'm getting done at the moment. But I'm doing these, as I mentioned. What I'm mindful of now is I'm worried because I know I don't have enough fabric to do the queen size or the king size quilt that I want to do. I know I don't have enough yet. So when Sue sort of mentioned you don't have to have it all yet, you can keep working on it as you go, that was a bit of a revelation. However, I'm mindful that if I'm continually gathering more fabrics and textiles to put in this, what I'm worried about is if I get all these 12.5-inch blocks done, by the time I get halfway through or to the end of those, are they going to look so different and have none of these repeating fabrics in them? Because some of these, you know, I've only got one piece, little piece. So I am mindful that I want to try and make sure I spread them all out, if that makes sense. I don't want to have groups of all of this fabric in one and then completely different in, I hope that makes sense. I'm thinking, you know, my brain's going a million miles an hour. So there's another of that Hello Kitty. It's so cute. Some of these are just stunning. Like I said, I was really worried I didn't have enough. And I still don't think I do. But the ones I'm finding as I go are better. Look at this one. This is a reproduction, but how good is that? A reproduction feed sack. So is this one. They're just, some of them are just amazing. This one's cute. Which one? I think this one goes that way. This one here is a piece of cotton. This was a cushion that I deconstructed. I bought it from my cousin and it was handmade in the 1920s, and the fabric is almost tissue paper thin. I've got, what do you call it? interfacing on all the pieces because there was so much variation in some of the fabrics. It's the only way I've been able to get it more to sort of pull together. Those bloody birds, I tell you what. See, there's just so much variation. I think I'm loving it more and more. I don't know if this piece will work. I don't know if you can see. This is one of the first ones I did, and I didn't have the interfacing on it, and they're different weights of fabric. It moved quite significantly when I stitched it. I thought I had left a little bit extra seam allowance. Once I've cut it to size, you can see the interfacing on the back. That's how big it should be to fit. So I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to use this piece, or can I add another strip? You know, maybe I could add another strip because this is a vintage Sanderson that I don't want to waste. I've been coveting it for quite a few years now. Outside here I can see marks. See that yellowing on there? It's all around there. You know, I cleaned this. It was quite damaged, that's why it's been cut up. It was a sandwich tray cloth, this one. I cleaned it, I soaked it, it looks nice and clean, but as time goes on, those marks are starting to reappear again. Which way did I have that one? I think that one goes that way. Don't know. Some of them are directional, see? Baby girl, what have you done now? Gee, she's been having trouble with her throat lately, getting things caught in it. It's very concerning. That one might have gone that way if I look at that petite pan, but I feel like that, anyway, I'll work all that out later. I haven't shown all these yet on my, there's a mark on there, on my Instagram. Wasn't going to add birds, but I wasn't going to add fruit, and I've got strawberries in it. I've got Hello Kitty in it now. There's quite a few things that are appearing that weren't planned on. Some of these you would have seen already. Some of these fabrics are just gorgeous. This is an old apron that I've sacrificed. This piece of fabric I've had for years, and it was only a small piece. I've used it in so many different projects, just tiny little bits of it. This was another apron. Or was that a supper cloth? That might have been the supper cloth, that one. That's a bit of Mum and Son, I think, a reproduction. This is the very first one I did. She shrunk a bit, so I had to undo her and do her again. Maybe I can do that with that Sanderson one. Unpick it and do it again. See if I can move those seams out a little bit. That might help us out there. Some more lovely vintage fabrics. They're very old. Well, I say very old. My very old is 20s, 30s. There's that beautiful pink again. I don't know if you can see. Can you see it's sort of yellowed? It's actually screen printed paint over the top for a bit of extra texture. That one's got a bit of wonk happening, hasn't it? No matter how careful I am, trying to remember which way that goes. I think that one goes that way. That's not a bad one, is it? There's some beautiful 1920s or 30s Sanderson, that one. Is it that piece? That, yeah, lady sold me that in at Islington, and she wasn't sure of the age, but we both agreed that it was probably 20s, 30s. I really like this one too. I might have to do more of these. And that wasn't intentional. I didn't realise until after I'd put this one together that I've ended up with Betsy in the centre of every one of them for that wheel. I thought that was pretty cool. Again, not intentional originally. Which way does this go? I think it goes that way. Again, some reproduction feed sack here and here. Some Betsy. That's the apron from, I think we've decided that was 50s. Petite pan. That's an old piece of cotton I got from a friend. I see Sue's got some of that one too. Some, is it Capel? Liberty? But they all work well. See, I was worried, I think I've mentioned, I was worried that the modern fabrics wouldn't work with the vintage fabrics, but I feel like this piece is in this direction. I feel like I've put that one upside down. I'm a silly goose. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I'm coming in a minute, sweetheart. I think that's all of them. I've got so many bits cut out to piece together, and yeah, that's about it. That's what I'm up to. Again, if you've got any questions or any comments, just let me know here. I'm just checking again to see. It's not showing me now. What a pain in the bum. No, it's not showing me if there's any comments. So, as I mentioned, that bird is flying right over the top of my head, and when they screech, it goes right through my ears. Man, it hurts. So in this bag below me, I've got bits to put another needle book together. Hopefully I'll be able to start on that one soon. I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got at least another 5 or 6 that I've started, needle books. Do you think I can find where I've put them? Man, that frustrates me. I've been looking for the last 2 days, and I don't know what on earth I have done with them. But if you haven't guessed, I'm going to wind this video up. I'll keep blabbering along here as I'm packing up. So if you have any questions or comments while I'm doing this, now's your chance while it's live. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until after the video has uploaded and comment then. If you comment now and I don't see it before I end the video, it usually disappears. I can't. Sometimes you can retrieve them, sometimes you can't. More often than not, you can't. So let me know. I'd love to know as well if you're doing the Forever Scrappy quilt as well. I'd love to see yours and follow along, so we can all cheer each other on. I like doing that. I like encouraging other makers and people in general, really. I love that one. I think that one's one of my favourites so far. Look at that embroidery. Isn't it stunning? This poor bit, it's already been washed again, because I took it in to show my neurologist. He wanted to see it, and of course I had a cup of coffee and I was trying to juggle crutches, coffee, bags, all sorts of things, and ended up with coffee on my, spilt through my bag of stuff, so I've had to wash some. There's a little 1-inch square. See, these are bits, these were in scraps. These have been thrown out, so that's a 1.5-inch square that's big enough to go into these panels. See, that's a 1.5-inch square there, so that'll fit in there. There's no point throwing that out. We can rescue that. Let me put these back in there. so they stay as clean as possible. I just put them in a Ziploc bag. These are bits that I showed you earlier that were cut up. They're going to go back in the box with all the other cut up bits that I'm not going to pull out of this bag right now because they've become very dishevelled and all over the place. So instead of trying to pull them out and getting a big bloody mess everywhere, I'll just leave them there for now, if that's all right with you guys. What else do I need to organise here? This is that needle book. I'm going to put that thread in the book so I know where it is, and that will go in the Ziploc bag as well to try and keep it as clean as possible. This one here, since I've been using this variegated to do those leaves, I'll put that in there for now so I know where that is. This is the needle I've been using, so I will put this in here so I know where that is. Right, one last thing to show you. All these bits I've been cutting up for my Forever Scrappy quilt. I do get some offcuts from that, some teeny tiny little bits that I've been saving. So I've been saving all these little offcuts that are coming off. They're not quite big enough. They're not 1.5 inch wide. So they're not quite big enough. Some of them are very, very small and may not be any good for anything. That one's no good for anything. But I'll show you in a minute what I'm saving these for. I've already done a few that have already been mailed away. There's some of those. These are more needle books I'm working on. These are patches. That's going to be, I've been working on this for years. That will hopefully be a pin cushion by the time I'm finished. That's another patch I'm working on. 9 patch. Now, all these little bits that I've been saving that have been getting trimmed off the bits I'm using in the Scrappy quilt. Again, none of these, oh, that one is. Most of these aren't quite big enough. That little hexie I made ages ago to actually put in the quilt. So I've been saving them and I've been making little mini patches, all hand stitched. These are just some beautiful fabrics that I think are too precious to throw out. Look how thin that one is. I think that was originally seersucker and I've pressed it that much. That was one from Beck's shop as well. Look how tiny some of these bits are. I just don't want to waste them. So that's one I've done. As I mentioned, quite a few have been mailed off already. I've sent them off for a patch swap I joined. But now I've just continued to do some. I'll keep building on this one, put another bit, I don't know what colour. Another bit there. Some of them are sort of just working around in it like a log cabin, sort of. Try and find bits that fit nicely without wasting any. That looks a bit, might be a bit too light to put there, so we look for something with a bit of colour. I want to try and utilise the shorter pieces so we're not wasting bits. That might be too short. That's too short to put there. What about... So again, these are just fiddly little bits that I play around with every now and then. Not that I have a lot of time to do that at the moment, but I'll just keep building on those and they can be put in as thank you gifts or go in little swaps, or I don't know. That's a bit too small. Something like that colour would work there, but it's not wide enough, so I have to find another bit. I want to try and keep these similar width when I'm spiralling around these ones. bits. What a bit, no, that's a bigger bit. That's a bit too small. Just can't find the right size here at the moment. Might have to cut one back. That might work there. How about that? So what I do here is I usually draw a line actually so I can see where I'm going, because where am I? Pen.
Where'd that kayak come from?
This is just rough, guys. So I'm just looking at, compared to that side, it's about 1/8 of an inch away from the writing, so move out about the same or similar distance. I can't tell if this is square though from here. Draw a bit of a rough line now. I want it to be seen more here than anywhere, because what I'll do is trim this down a little bit. It gets a bit harder as you go out. And I want to make sure I've got about those flippin' birds. I want about what's that, 1/8 of an inch? About 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch is better, but sometimes it's not doable with these tiny bits. So what I'm doing here is, you can just see that line I've drawn there and there. So I want to make sure this overlaps there, and then I will put, of course I don't have any pins handy. Where did I put that? It's probably not in here. Of course, there's one. I actually usually baste it because I don't like how when I put a pin in, it twists the fabric a bit. Then I'll come along and, I can't see it. See, that's not very bloody straight. That's what annoys me with pins, especially doing this little fiddly work. Okay. What I want to do now is try and line up that line I've drawn earlier. Doesn't look very square to me. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, because we're not gonna see that later anyway. That's just to give me an idea of where I want to stitch. It's not very... That'll work. Then I'm just looking for, I wonder if that's enough. I don't want to have to thread another one up. So then I just come along here, do a little holding stitch. I try not to use knots if I don't have to. I'm getting all sidetracked again. I was packing up. So let's do a little holding stitch. Might have to go over that twice to make sure it's holding. No, that's going to work. And then I don't like, I've mentioned this before, and if you've heard it before, I apologise for repeating myself. I don't like stitching I can't see that line, it's getting dark. So a lot of people will do their running stitch like this. You stay there please, Buffhead. Like this. I don't like that because I don't like the effect. I don't like the final. It's just a little difference, but I notice it and I don't like it, so I do a stab stitch. It's more laborious, but I like the final look better. It's a running stitch, but I'm just doing a stab stitch motion instead of an actual running stitch, if that makes sense. So again, just quickly, trying to be quickly. It's taking me longer. It's not showing me the message. Comments again. If you guys are commenting, I apologise. For some reason, they're suddenly not showing. The last, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, they're not coming up. Yes, I have it turned on. They've just stopped. Okay. Now the good thing with this is, I mean, I was carrying that box with me, but it's a bit bulky, so if I'm going to appointments or something, I'll just pick out some pieces, get a rough idea of how they might work together, take my little rule and my pen and my needle and thread and do some of this while I'm waiting. Now what the other thing is, a bit hard to tell you until I get there to show you. Oh, it takes me forever to stitch a line, doesn't it? You can probably already guess I like tiny little close stitches because in my brain I feel like it makes it more secure. It may not, but that's what my brain tells me, so that's what I do. We'll be there shortly, guys. Bit of fluff hanging there. We're more than halfway, so crying out loud, it's gotten cold all of a sudden. And this is why I don't want to go out to training tonight, even though I really should. It's just going to be too cold. I went last week and it got down to 6 degrees while we were there in the shed. And I really don't want to get sick from sitting in the cold. If we're doing training, we'll most likely be outside in the damp and the cold. Don't think we're doing inside training tonight. I feel like I'm letting people down though by not going. Okay, we're getting closer, guys, nearly there. Getting closer. I've left a bit of a wide seam allowance there. It's about a 1/4 inch. Like I said earlier, it depends on the size of the fabric you've got. Sometimes if you really want to use a piece of fabric, you have to use like an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, as long as it's not likely to pull away, I suppose. That's a pain in the bum. Okay, nearly there. Another 3 or 4 stitches. 1, 2. I'll do a bit of a holding stitch now because, as I've mentioned before, I try not to use knots where avoidable. Just do another holding stitch here. Okay, now let's snip that off. Oh, it's really cold all of a sudden. As soon as that sun's gone, take that pin out, and then that's what we've just stitched. And all we do is fold it back out and finger press. And there's your next your next one done. So the next one I will do is I will get another piece of fabric. I don't know which one. Don't like that colour there. And it will go in here, the next one. That's not long enough. We don't want the same colour. That's not long enough. Come on. What's this one? That's the right length. But is that colour too? That might work. So I'll put that, maybe put that one there next. And then I'll get another one and go, where's another piece? Some of these are way too small. I can still use them. This one's very narrow. So essentially I'll just dig through my box and look for something that I can use. Maybe put that one there. And then put, I don't know. Some of them are just too narrow to use. Maybe I can put something like that down there. And I just work my way around in a clockwise motion with this one. This one was done differently, as you can see. So I think I've just done these first, just stitch those together and flatten them out, and then I've added another bit here, or I might have added those bits and then added that to that, and then added, you know, just build on it randomly, higgledy-piggledy here and there, and just have fun with it. And again, it's just using these precious, look, some of these are really precious little, really old vintage scraps that I don't want to throw out. So I'm just making little bits and pieces with them. That's, if you're wondering, I just wrote that on a bit of cotton and hand stitched it. This was a bit of vintage cotton sheeting that I originally tea dyed and then I painted. I don't know if you can see. There's bits of paint on it. I was using this in junk journaling. I was doing like little mini mixed media journal things that I don't do now, so I've recycled that into that. And I think for now that might do us, because it's getting too cold and I've got to go in and get something for dinner. I haven't been eating very well, so I need to make an effort tonight again so I don't get sick. More needle books I'm working on. This is another bit of vintage quilting that I got from Beck that I've been working on for quite a while. It's very old. It's falling apart. See here, I keep mending bits and pieces. There's a bit somewhere where I've added a patch over it. I can't even see my own patch now. It stands out like, there it is. I'm a bit frustrated that the thread I've used, I could have done better. It's too chunky. I should have done better with that. Anyway, there's that. Let's get some packing up done, because it's, my kidneys are starting to feel it, that's for sure. I know I shouldn't have both my glasses in one box, but they're both close-up work. These are really close embroidery. I should have worn them. These are not quite as close. I didn't get my driving glasses this year because I didn't think I needed them, and now I wish I had. That's what I'm working on. These can go in here so I don't lose them. That's the one I'm using on here, so I'll put that in there so I know where it is. variegated thread bag here. I would have thought after all these years of collecting I'd have more variegated than that. That's a handful of vintage threads that were sitting in on the cupboard. So I'll just put them in there for now. Am I forgetting anything? Let's go put all these in this bag so I can... I'm still on crutches too, so that makes it more difficult to move around and get things done. So I sort of load everything into my one craft bag and try and carry it all at once. I'm getting big arm muscles. It's certainly challenging, that's for sure. Glasses. That's the, oh, there's the... I thought I had a lid for that bloody pen. There we go. I'll tell you what. I need to get some refills for these pens. I go through them like... I've been using these for years. I started using these when I was teaching about, let me think, 7, 8, 9, at least 15 years ago. When they first came on the market, I worked out that they were really good to use for stitching. I was buying the... What brand are they? They were from the quilt store. It's a very popular brand. They do glue sticks and all sorts. Very good stuff. But it just got too expensive for me for the amount of drawing on fabric I was doing. So I started using those friction markers. And I used to buy them at Big W, like packs of them for a couple of bucks. You can't get them for that anymore. Sometimes I wish I'd have stocked up years ago. But, you know, what is it? Hindsight is, I don't know, I can't remember that saying. Anyway, I've got my bag packed. I've got my 2 tins of threads here that need to come back inside. They need to go back with all the other threads. I've got my cup of coffee that's gone stone cold. That's it, guys. I've got to dismantle this camera setup, and hopefully you've been able to hear okay, since I didn't have my microphone today because I don't know where I put it. I had it the other day doing something with Dad, and I don't know what I've done with it. Anyway, it's cold, it's getting late, I need to pack up. I thank you so very much for joining me. I'm just going to double check again to see if there's any comments visible. Then they're not there. I don't know what happened, why they've suddenly, well, partway through this, they've all disappeared. Anyway, so much for my 30-minute video again. I'm hopeless. One day I'll get some short ones done for you guys, so you're sitting here listening to me ramble on for hours at a time. But for now, why does it take me so long to sign off on these things? I'm going to go. It's cold. It's very, very cold. My hands are going white because it's so cold. My back's starting to hurt because it's so cold. And I need to go inside and warm up and get some dinner on. I'm going to cook a nice dinner of veggies tonight. I haven't had a good dinner for a while. So, nice feed of veggies, and as I said, I'm supposed to be at training. I'm actually writing some documents that I've gotten a bit carried away with, but I'm actually quite proud at what I've written. It's come together a lot better than I thought it would. I had this idea to write I don't know what you call it, a handbook, a how-to book, like a social media strategy plan, and I've ended up with over 120 pages in one document. And then the next document I pulled together to do ideas for content, and I've got about another 100 pages for that. So I've been editing that I've just had so many. I don't know what came over me. Like I said, I haven't been sleeping. And the other night I had this idea to write this all down and make some booklets. So it was all very clear. So if control of the social media accounts was handed over to someone else, it was all written down, very clearly mapped out as to how to do it, how, all that sort of stuff. So I've been working on that as well. Of course, I'm still doing the destashing. I've been working through claims today. I have sent some messages off to people. If you're waiting and you want yours prioritised, let me know. I will try to get those finished tonight. If not tonight, I hope they'll get them done tomorrow before I go to the dentist. I think that's it. I'm going to go. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope you've learned something. I hope you may have gained some inspiration to give something a go yourself. As always, if you have any questions, any comments, and please keep them nice. There's no need to be mean or rude to anyone. But yeah, thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Be safe, guys.